Sarah Mitchell hadn't stepped foot in Manhattan for 3 years. Not since the divorce. Not since the humiliating doctor's appointments that sealed her fate. Not since Marcus told her he couldn't build a future with someone who couldn't give him children. The city felt different now as she walked down Fifth Avenue, the autumn wind biting at her face. She clutched the hands of two small children while pushing a stroller containing four more. 6 identical faces with bright blue eyes and golden curls looked up at her with complete trust. 6 children who called her mommy. 6 children who made her believe in miracles again. She never expected to run into Marcus here. She never expected to see the color drain from his face as his eyes moved from her to the children and back again. She definitely never expected him to freeze mid-step, his coffee cup slipping from his hand and shattering on the sidewalk. If you enjoy dramatic stories about second chances and unexpected twists, please subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support means everything as we bring you more incredible narratives. Sarah's hands trembled as she tried to process what was happening. Marcus stood 15 feet away, his expensive suit somehow looking rumpled, despite its perfect tailoring. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The woman beside him, a stunning redhead in designer heels, touched his arm with concern. "Marcus, are you okay?" the woman asked, her voice sharp with irritation. But Marcus couldn't speak. His eyes remained fixed on the children, on Sarah, on the impossible reality before him. "Mommy, that man is staring at us," whispered Emma, one of the twins holding Sarah's hands. At 5 years old, Emma noticed everything. She had a way of reading people that sometimes unnerved Sarah, as if the little girl could see straight through to someone's soul. "It's okay, sweetheart," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let's keep walking." She tried to move past him, but Marcus finally found his voice. It came out strangled, desperate. "Sarah," he breathed. "Sarah, wait, please." She didn't want to wait. Every instinct told her to run, to protect herself and her children from this man who once represented her greatest pain. But her children were watching with curious eyes, and she'd learned long ago in the orphanages of Guatemala that running solved nothing. Courage meant facing the hard moments. "Hello, Marcus," she said coolly, straightening her spine. "I don't understand," he stammered, his eyes sweeping over the children again, studying each face with an intensity that made Sarah's skin prickle. "You couldn't have kids. The doctors said you were barren. Multiple doctors. We spent 2 years trying. 2 years of treatments and appointments and heartbreak." The redhead's eyes widened with understanding and something else. Jealousy, maybe. Or anger. "Oh my God, is this her? Your ex-wife?" The redhead's voice dripped with venom. "The one you're supposedly over?" Marcus ignored his companion entirely, which only made the woman's face flush darker with rage. He took a step closer to Sarah, studying each child's face with an intensity that bordered on obsession. "They're mine, aren't they?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "How is this possible? Tell me how this is possible." "Sarah." Sarah laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised even her. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere that still held 3 years' worth of pain. "Yours? Marcus, you divorced me because I was barren, remember? You married someone else 6 months later. You moved on with your perfect fertile wife. Why would these children have anything to do with you?" "Sarah, please," he said desperately, reaching for her arm but stopping himself. "They look exactly like my baby pictures." "Exactly. My mother has dozens of photos from when I was their age, and these kids could be my clones. The same eyes, the same smile, the same way they tilt their heads. Tell me the truth. I'm begging you." The children were getting restless. Lily in the stroller started fussing, her face scrunching up in that way that meant a meltdown was coming. Noah tugged at Sarah's jacket, whining about being hungry. Mason was trying to climb out of the stroller. This was not the place for this conversation. This was not a conversation she ever wanted to have. "I have to go," she said firmly, her mama bear instincts kicking in. "My children need lunch and a nap." "Your children?" Marcus grabbed her arm gently but insistently, his fingers warm through her jacket. "Sarah, if there's even a chance, even the smallest possibility that these are mine, I have a right to know. Please, just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." The redhead made an indignant sound, her designer purse swinging as she gestured wildly. Marcus, we have reservations at Per Se in 20 minutes. You know how hard it was to get that table? You can't seriously be doing this right now. You can't be choosing her over me. Go without me, Vanessa, Marcus said without looking at her, his eyes still locked on Sarah's face. Vanessa's face flushed with anger, her perfectly made-up features contorting. Unbelievable. 3 years, Marcus. 3 years we've been together, and you're going to ditch me for your ex-wife and her brood of kids, for someone you claim to be over? Vanessa, please, Marcus said tiredly, finally glancing at her. I'll explain later. I'll call you. Don't bother, Vanessa snapped. She spun on her heel and stalked away, her designer purse swinging violently. Her heels clicked angrily against the pavement. We're done, Marcus. Done. Sarah watched the drama unfold with a strange sense of detachment, like she was watching a movie rather than participating in real life. Once upon a time, Marcus's attention had been everything to her. Once upon a time, she would have done anything to see that desperate look in his eyes, to feel like she mattered to him. But that was before the diagnosis, before the divorce, before Guatemala, before she became a mother and discovered strength she never knew she possessed. There's a coffee shop around the corner, Marcus said quietly, his voice shaking slightly. Please, Sarah, just 5 minutes. If you want me out of your life after that, I'll go. I promise. She should say no. Every rational part of her brain screamed to say no. She should protect her children from this man who walked away when things got hard, who couldn't handle her at her worst. But she also saw the hunger in his eyes, the desperate need to understand. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved to know the truth. Or at least a version of it. Fine, she said, surprised by her own voice. 5 minutes. But if any of my kids get upset, we leave immediately. Deal, Marcus said quickly, relief flooding his features. The coffee shop was small and warm, a contrast to the cold October air. The smell of espresso and cinnamon filled the space. Sarah settled the children at a large corner table, ordering hot chocolate with extra marshmallows and cookies for everyone. 6 voices called out their preferences, and the barista's eyes widened at the chaos. 6 kids, the young woman asked. Wow, you're brave. Or crazy, Sarah said with a smile. Some days I'm not sure which. Marcus sat across from her, his expensive suit looking out of place in the casual coffee shop. His eyes never left the kids, watching as they squabbled over who got which cookie, as Emma tried to mother the younger ones, as Noah spilled his hot chocolate, and Mason laughed. Tell me, he said simply when Sarah finally sat down. Tell me everything. Sarah took a deep breath, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup for warmth and comfort. Where did she even start? How did she explain the journey from broken divorcee to mother of 6? After the divorce, I was destroyed, she began, her voice low enough that the children couldn't hear. You know that. You saw me at my lowest point, the woman who couldn't give you children, the failure, the defective wife. Marcus flinched hard, his jaw clenching. Sarah, I never called you a failure. I never thought of you that way. You didn't have to, she said quietly, meeting his eyes. I felt it every day. Every negative pregnancy test felt like proof that I was broken. Every pitying look from your mother at family dinners. Every whispered conversation about adoption that you shut down because you wanted biological children, your bloodline, your genes. Every time you pulled away from me in bed, because what was the point if I couldn't get pregnant? That's not fair, Marcus protested, his hands gripping his coffee cup tightly. I wanted us to explore all our options. I suggested adoption multiple times. No, Marcus. You mentioned it once, then immediately talked about how expensive it was, how complicated, how you really wanted your own biological children first. You wanted what you wanted. And when I couldn't give it to you, when I failed at the one thing women are supposedly designed to do, you left. You gave up on us. Sarah's voice remained calm, but her hands gripped her coffee cup tightly enough that her knuckles turned white. But you know what? You leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to find myself again. She saw the hurt flash across his face, quickly replaced by confusion and something that looked like regret. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I went to Guatemala. Sarah continued, her voice softening as she remembered. My college roommate, Rebecca, was doing missionary work there, teaching English to kids in the mountains. I needed to get away, to find myself again, to remember who I was before I became defined by my broken reproductive system, before I became just the woman who couldn't have babies. The children were happily eating their cookies, their faces covered in chocolate. Emma was trying to wipe Noah's face with a napkin, playing little mother as always. While I was there, I volunteered at an orphanage in Guatemala City, Casa de Esperanza, House of Hope. Sarah's voice softened further, becoming almost dreamy. That's where I met them. They were 3 months old when I first walked into that nursery. 6 tiny babies who had been abandoned at the hospital the day they were born. Their mother was a 15-year-old girl who couldn't care for them. Can you imagine, Marcus? 15 years old and giving birth to sextuplets. No family support, no resources. She did the only thing she could. She left them at the hospital with a note that said she hoped they'd find a better life. Marcus leaned forward, completely absorbed. So you adopted them? Not immediately, Sarah said, and a small smile played at her lips despite the heaviness of the conversation. The adoption process in Guatemala is incredibly complicated, especially for a single American woman trying to adopt 6 children at once. 6, Marcus. Most people adopt one child and the process takes years. Sextuplets are rare, incredibly rare. They require tremendous medical care and resources. The orphanage was overwhelmed. These babies needed round-the-clock care, special formula, medical monitoring. They were premature, tiny, fragile. She paused, watching her children now. They were so healthy, so vibrant, so alive. It was hard to remember how small they'd once been. It took 2 years, she continued. 2 years of paperwork, home studies, court appearances, and prayers. 2 years of flying back and forth between New York and Guatemala City, spending every penny I had. 2 years of spending every moment I could with these babies, of falling completely in love with them. I learned Spanish. I navigated a foreign legal system. I fought corrupt officials who wanted bribes. I dealt with judges who didn't think a single American woman could handle 6 children. I proved them all wrong. But you were told you couldn't have children? Marcus said, still trying to piece it together, still looking for the logic. The doctors were certain. They did every test. You had scarring from endometriosis. Your egg count was almost non-existent. They said pregnancy was impossible. I couldn't have biological children, Sarah corrected, emphasis on biological. But I could be a mother. These children needed a mother desperately, and I needed them. They saved me, Marcus. They gave me purpose when I thought my life was over. When I thought I was worthless because my body didn't work right. They showed me that motherhood isn't about biology. It's about love and sacrifice and showing up every single day. She watched him process this information, saw the wheels turning in his mind. He was always analytical, always looking for patterns and explanations. They're not biologically mine, he said slowly, as if testing the words. No, but they look like me, exactly like me. Sarah smiled sadly, knowing this was the part that would haunt him. Do they? Or are you seeing what you want to see? You have dark hair and blue eyes. So do millions of people. These children have Guatemalan heritage mixed with who knows what else. Maybe some European ancestry. Maybe their biological father had similar coloring. You're projecting, Marcus. You're seeing yourself in them because you want to. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. The resemblance was uncanny, something she'd noticed immediately when she first saw the babies in that orphanage nursery. It was part of fate's cruel joke, giving her children who looked like they could have been born from the marriage that failed, like the universe was mocking her. Where are you living now? Marcus asked, changing tactics but his eyes still studying the children. Brooklyn. Park Slope. I have a brownstone there. Well, half of one. It's small, but it works. I work from home as a graphic designer, freelance mostly. It lets me set my own hours, be there for the kids. Money's tight, but we manage. The kids start kindergarten next month at PS 321. All 6 of them? Sarah laughed, a real laugh this time. Yes, all 6. It's chaos, Marcus. Absolute beautiful chaos. 6 different personalities. 6 sets of needs and wants and dreams. 6 different ways of seeing the world. Emma is my little mother, always trying to take care of everyone. Noah is my wild child, always climbing things and giving me heart attacks. Lily is my artist, always drawing and making up stories. Mason is my clown, always making everyone laugh. Sophie is my quiet thinker, always watching and learning. And Jake is my cuddler, always needing hugs and reassurance. Some days I don't know how I'm going to make it through. Some days I'm pretty sure I'm failing at everything, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Not for anything in the world. Marcus sat back in his chair, running his hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered well from their marriage. He did it when he was stressed, when he was trying to solve a problem he couldn't figure out. I got remarried, he said finally, his voice dropping, 10 months after our divorce was finalized. Jennifer. She's a corporate lawyer at Skadden. We have a son together. His name is Tyler. He's 2 years old. Something twisted in Sarah's chest, but it wasn't jealousy. Not anymore. It was something else. Sadness, maybe, for the life that could have been but wasn't meant to be. Pity for the man who thought a new wife could fix what was broken inside him. I'm happy for you, she said, and meant it. She really did. Are you? Marcus asked, his eyes searching her face. Because I'm not sure I'm happy. Jennifer and I are good on paper. We look perfect to everyone else. We have the same career goals, the same lifestyle, the same social circle. But it's not what I thought it would be. It's not what we had. Marcus, Sarah said gently, a warning in her tone. Why are you telling me this? He met her eyes and she saw the regret there. The what-ifs that plagued him late at night. The realization that came too late. Because seeing you today, seeing you with these children, seeing how happy you are, it made me realize what I threw away. You were the love of my life, Sarah. You were my person, my soulmate, and I let you go over something that, in the end, didn't really matter. I let fear and disappointment and my own stupid pride destroy the best thing I ever had. It did matter, Sarah said firmly, needing him to understand. It mattered to both of us at the time. We wanted different things. We were at different places. No, Marcus insisted, leaning forward intensely. I wanted children. You couldn't have them biologically, but you found another way. You found 6 ways. If I had just been patient, if I had just waited and worked with you instead of giving up, instead of being a coward, maybe we could have adopted together. Maybe these could have been our children. Maybe we'd still be married. Maybe I wouldn't spend every night regretting the biggest mistake of my life. Sarah shook her head slowly. That's not how life works, Marcus. You can't rewrite the past. You can't undo the choices we made. These are my children, not ours. Mine. I went through hell to bring them home. I fought for them when everyone told me it was impossible, when everyone said I was crazy for trying to adopt 6 kids as a single woman. I learned a new language, navigated a foreign legal system, spent my life savings, lived in Guatemala for months at a time, and never gave up. Not once. You weren't there for any of it. You were busy starting your new perfect life with your new perfect wife. I know, Marcus said quietly, his voice breaking. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I'll regret not being braver, not fighting harder for us. The moment hung between them, heavy with history and loss, and the weight of choices made long ago that couldn't be undone. Mommy, can we go to the park? Noah asked, tugging at her sleeve with chocolate-covered fingers. Please? You said maybe. Sarah checked her watch. It was already past 2. They needed to get home soon for quiet time, or the afternoon would dissolve into chaos and tears. Not today, buddy. We need to get home for nap time and then dinner. But you promised, Emma whined, her lower lip jutting out in the pout that usually worked on Sarah. You said maybe park. I promised maybe, Sarah corrected gently but firmly. And maybe is not today. Maybe is this weekend. But we'll definitely go Saturday morning, okay? Early before it gets too crowded. The children accepted this with minimal grumbling, a testament to the gentle discipline Sarah had worked hard to establish. She believed in boundaries, in consistency, in following through. Marcus watched the interaction with open fascination, like he was watching a masterclass in parenting. You're a good mother, he said, and there was wonder in his voice. I try, Sarah replied, gathering up napkins and cups. That's all any parent can do. Try their best and hope it's enough. As they gathered their things to leave, as Sarah wrestled 6 kids into jackets and collected scattered toys, Marcus pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking slightly. Can I have your number? I'd like to stay in touch. Maybe grab coffee sometime, just to catch up properly. No time limits, no kids getting restless. Just us talking like old friends? Sarah hesitated, her hand on Emma's shoulder. Part of her wanted to slam that door shut, to protect herself and her children from the man who once broke her heart into so many pieces she wasn't sure she'd ever put it back together properly. But another part, the part that had learned forgiveness in the mountains of Guatemala, the part that had learned that anger only hurt the person holding it, knew that holding on to resentment only hurt herself. Okay, she said finally, typing her number into his phone. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I've built a good life, a happy life, a full life. I'm not the same broken woman you divorced. I'm not desperate for your approval or your love anymore. And I'm not interested in revisiting the past beyond friendship. If you want to be friends, actual friends, then fine, but nothing more. I understand, Marcus said, though his eyes told a different story. They held hope and longing and 1,000 unspoken wants. They walked out of the coffee shop together, back into the crisp autumn afternoon. The sun was setting earlier now, painting the city in shades of orange and gold. The air smelled like roasting chestnuts and car exhaust and the particular smell of New York in fall. Sarah, Marcus called as she started to walk away, as she began herding her 6 children toward the subway station. Thank you for giving me those 5 minutes, for being honest, for not hating me. She nodded, then herded her 6 children down the street. 6 little ducklings following their mother. She didn't look back. She'd spent too much of her life looking back, wondering what if, torturing herself with alternate realities. The next few weeks passed in the usual whirlwind of parenting sextuplets. Breakfast was a military operation requiring 3 boxes of cereal and 2 gallons of milk. Getting everyone dressed and ready took an hour minimum, even when everyone cooperated. The laundry was endless, mountains of tiny clothes that seemed to multiply overnight. The grocery bills were astronomical, her cart always the fullest in the store. But Sarah had never been happier, never felt more fulfilled. Marcus texted occasionally, simple messages at first, testing the waters. Hope you're having a good day. Thinking of you. Would love to grab that coffee. Saw something that made me think of you. Sarah responded politely but didn't commit to anything. She was busy, she was happy, she didn't need complications. Her life was complicated enough without adding an ex-husband who suddenly realized what he'd lost. Then 3 weeks after their chance encounter, 3 weeks of sporadic texts and careful distance, Marcus showed up at her door on a Saturday morning. No warning. No text asking if it was okay. Just there. Sarah opened the door in yoga pants and an old college sweatshirt with a coffee stain on the front, her hair in a messy bun, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes from being up half the night with Sophie, who had a nightmare. She was exactly who she was now. And she didn't apologize for it, didn't try to hide or make excuses. Marcus, what are you doing here? How did you even get my address? I needed to see you, he said, and he looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. His usual perfect hair was messy. His eyes were bloodshot. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual designer suits. Really see you, not in a coffee shop with a time limit and my ex-girlfriend making a scene. In your real life. I hope that's okay. I know I should have called first. Before Sarah could respond, before she could decide if she should be angry about this invasion of her privacy, all 6 children came thundering to the door, curious about the visitor. They were in pajamas, faces sticky with syrup from breakfast, full of energy and noise. Who are you? Asked Mason, always the bold one. Always the first to approach strangers. I'm Marcus, he said, crouching down to their level with practiced ease. I'm an old friend of your mom's. We used to know each other a long time ago. Do you want to see my drawing? Lily asked, already pulling him inside with sticky hands. I drawed a unicorn and a rainbow and a princess castle. I'd love to see it, Marcus said, allowing himself to be pulled into the chaos of Sarah's living room. Sarah watched in amazement as her children, usually shy with strangers, usually hiding behind her legs, adopted Marcus immediately. Within minutes, he was sitting on her living room floor, surrounded by toys and children in chaos, helping build a block tower while Emma showed him her favorite book, while Noah climbed on his back, while Jake cuddled into his lap. "You're good with them," Sarah observed, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. She was trying to be annoyed but finding it difficult. Marcus looked up, his hair mussed from Noah trying to style it with his sticky fingers, a smile on his face that Sarah hadn't seen in years. "They're incredible, Sarah. All of them. Each one's so different. You've done an amazing job. They're happy and confident and loving." The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache. This was the Marcus she'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. The kind and gentle man who existed before the pressure and disappointment of infertility had poisoned their marriage, before resentment and failure had built walls between them. "Why are you really here?" she asked quietly, needing to know. Marcus stood up carefully, extracting himself from the pile of children. "Because I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let you go," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I have no right to even ask. But Sarah, seeing you again, seeing the woman you've become, made me realize that I never stopped loving you. I tried. God knows I tried. But I can't stop thinking about you." Sarah's breath caught. This was not what she expected, not what she wanted to hear. "Marcus, you're married. You have a son. You have a whole life." "I'm getting divorced," he said flatly, dropping the bomb like it was nothing. "The papers were filed last week. Jennifer and I have been miserable for over a year. We both knew it, but we're too proud to admit it, too invested in looking perfect to everyone else. Seeing you was just the catalyst I needed to finally end something that should have never begun. Jennifer deserves someone who actually loves her, not someone who married her because he was trying to replace someone else." "You can't do this," Sarah said, her voice rising slightly, panic creeping in. "You can't blow up your life and expect to just walk back into mine. You can't upend everything because of some chance encounter." "I'm not expecting anything," Marcus said desperately, taking a step toward her. "I just needed you to know how I feel, that I was wrong, that I'm sorry, that every day for the last 3 years I've regretted giving up on us, that if there's even the smallest chance you might consider giving me another chance, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." "Consider what?" Sarah interrupted, her heart racing. "Getting back together? Playing house with you and my children? Pretending the last 3 years didn't happen? Pretending you didn't break my heart so badly I wasn't sure I'd survive?" "No," Marcus said firmly, reaching for her hands but not quite touching. "I would never ask you to pretend. I'm asking you to consider starting fresh. A new relationship built on who we are now, not who we were then. 2 different people who maybe deserve a second chance." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. This was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. She couldn't think with him standing so close, looking at her like that. "I need you to leave," she said, her voice breaking. "Sarah, please, Marcus, just go. I need time to think." He nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes even though she could see how much it hurt him. He said goodbye to the children, who protested his departure loudly, who made him promise to come back soon, who had already fallen in love with him in the span of 30 minutes. After he left, Sarah sank onto her couch, her mind reeling. The children sensed her distress and piled on top of her, a writhing mass of hugs and kisses and declarations of love. "We love you, Mommy," Emma whispered, patting her face with small hands. "Are you sad?" "No, baby," Sarah lied. "Mommy's just thinking about grown-up things." And in that moment, surrounded by her children, Sarah knew what mattered. These children, this life she'd built from nothing, nothing else. She couldn't risk it. Not for Marcus, not for anyone. But Marcus didn't give up. Over the next month, he became a constant presence. Not pushy or demanding, just there. He showed up to help when Sarah's car broke down on the BQE, calling a tow truck and driving her and all 6 kids home. He sent groceries when she mentioned money was tight and the electric bill was higher than expected. He came to the children's school Halloween parade, standing in the back with the other parents, cheering for all 6 of her kids dressed as superheroes. He sent her funny memes that made her laugh. He remembered her favorite coffee order. He was patient and kind and everything she'd once loved about him. Slowly, against her better judgment, against every wall she'd carefully constructed, Sarah's defenses began to crack. They started having coffee dates while the kids were in school. Long conversations at the little cafe near her house about everything and nothing. Marcus told her about his failing marriage, about the realization that he'd been chasing an image of perfection instead of real happiness, about couples therapy that only revealed how incompatible he and Jennifer really were. Sarah told him about Guatemala, about the fear and joy of becoming a mother overnight to 6 babies, about learning to trust herself again, about building a life from scratch. "I see you differently now," Marcus admitted one afternoon in November, the cafe windows fogged from the cold. "You're stronger, more confident. You know who you are, and you don't apologize for it." "Losing you forced me to find myself," Sarah said honestly, stirring her latte. "As painful as it was, as much as I hated you for a while, I needed it. I needed to learn that my worth wasn't tied to my ability to have children. I needed to learn that I was enough just as I was." "And now?" Marcus asked carefully. "Do you need me?" Sarah considered the question carefully, really thought about it. "No," she said finally, and saw him deflate slightly. "I don't need you, but I'm starting to think I might want you in my life. If we do this right, if we take it slow, if you understand that my children come first, always, no matter what." Marcus's face lit up with hope, brighter than she'd seen in years. "Slow is good. Slow is perfect. And Sarah, I would never ask you to put me before your children. They're amazing, all 6 of them." They dated carefully over the next 6 months. Marcus was patient, understanding that Sarah's children came first always. He never complained when she canceled plans because someone was sick or having a bad day. He attended their birthday party in March, bringing 6 perfectly chosen gifts that showed he'd been paying attention to each child's individual interests. Emma got an art set, Noah got a skateboard, Lily got a karaoke machine, Mason got a joke book, Sophie got a telescope, Jake got the stuffed animal he'd been eyeing at every store. He helped Sarah paint the kitchen one weekend, making her laugh with his terrible paint skills and getting more paint on himself than the walls. He learned Spanish phrases so he could talk to the kids about their Guatemalan heritage. He showed up, consistently, reliably, the way he never had before, but it wasn't perfect. Marcus's divorce got ugly, with Jennifer fighting for full custody of their son Tyler and demanding enormous amounts of alimony. The stress made Marcus short-tempered at times, snapping at Sarah over small things. And Sarah struggled with trust, always waiting for him to decide she was too much work again, that 6 kids was more chaos than he signed up for, that he'd made another mistake. They had their first major fight in April, when Marcus suggested Sarah could move into a bigger house in a better neighborhood if they combined finances. "I don't need you to rescue me," Sarah snapped, her voice sharp. "I've been handling my life just fine without you. I have a home. My kids are happy. We're fine." "I'm not trying to rescue you," Marcus shot back, frustrated. "I'm trying to be a partner. I'm trying to help. Park Slope is expensive, and your house is too small for 7 people. "Then be a partner without trying to fix everything," Sarah said, her old wounds opening. "I don't need fixing, Marcus. Neither do my children. We're not your project." They didn't speak for a week, the longest stretch since reconnecting. But then Noah got sick with pneumonia and had to be hospitalized, and Marcus showed up at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital at 2 in the morning without being asked, simply sitting with Sarah as their son received treatment through an IV, as doctors talked about oxygen levels and chest x-rays. Not speaking, not trying to fix anything, just present, just there. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered as the sun rose through the hospital windows. "I keep falling back into old patterns, trying to control things I can't control, trying to make everything perfect. But Sarah, I'm learning. I promise I'm learning." Sarah squeezed his hand, watching Noah sleep peacefully finally. "We're both learning. That's what matters." By summer, their relationship had found its rhythm. Marcus spent weekends at Sarah's house, helping with the chaos of 6 active 5-year-olds. He taught them to ride bikes in Prospect Park, running behind each one patiently. He read them bedtime stories with different voices for each character. He made Sarah laugh until her stomach hurt. He looked at her like she hung the moon. He was present in a way he never had been before. And Sarah, slowly but surely, let herself fall in love again. Let herself trust again. Let herself believe in second chances. But there was one conversation they'd never had. One elephant in the room that grew larger with each passing day, each family dinner, each bedtime routine Marcus participated in. It came to a head in August when Marcus's mother, Patricia, came for a visit. Patricia Walsh took one look at the 6 children playing in Sarah's small backyard and burst into tears. Real heaving sobs that made everyone stop and stare. "They look just like Marcus did," she sobbed, clutching Sarah's arm. "It's uncanny. It's like looking at photos of him as a child. The same everything." Marcus and Sarah exchanged uncomfortable glances across the yard. "Mom, we've explained this multiple times," Marcus said patiently, leading her inside away from the children. "They're adopted, from Guatemala. They're not biologically related to us." "I know what you said," Patricia insisted, pulling out her phone and scrolling through old photos. "But look at this. Look at Marcus at age 5. She held up a photo and then gestured to Noah playing outside. "Tell me that's not the same child." And Sarah had to admit, seeing the photo side by side with Noah, her former mother-in-law wasn't entirely wrong. The resemblance was striking, particularly in Emma and Noah and Sophie. The same smile, the same way of tilting their head when confused, the same dimple in the left cheek, the same widow's peak hairline. That night, after the children were asleep and Patricia had left still muttering about genetics and fate, Marcus brought it up again. "My mother has a point," he said carefully, sitting next to Sarah on the couch. "And I know this is going to sound crazy, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about it." Sarah's heart started racing. She knew what was coming. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's a resemblance that's really hard to ignore. And I'm wondering if maybe we should do a DNA test, just to know for sure, just to rule it out." "A DNA test?" Sarah repeated, her voice hollow. "You think I'm lying to you?" "No," Marcus said quickly, reaching for her hand. "No, Sarah, that's not what I'm saying at all. I believe you that you adopted them from Guatemala. I've seen all the paperwork. I know you wouldn't lie. But what if there's something we don't know? What if their biological father is somehow related to me? What if there's a connection we don't understand?" "That's insane," Sarah said, pulling her hand away. "That's completely insane." "Is it?" Marcus asked, and she could see he'd been thinking about this a lot. "Sarah, I've done the math. You said they were 3 months old when you first met them in Guatemala. That would put their birth around February of that year. We were still married then, still trying to conceive. We'd just done that last round of IVF in May the year before." "So what?" Sarah demanded, standing up and pacing. "Are you suggesting I somehow got pregnant, hid it from you for 9 months, gave birth in secret in Guatemala, and then pretended to adopt my own children? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." "I know it sounds crazy," Marcus said, standing too, "but I need to know, for my own peace of mind. Because Sarah, when I look at those kids, I see myself. I see my family, and I need to know if that's just wishful thinking or if there's something more." Sarah felt like the world was tilting. "If you need a DNA test to trust me, then maybe we shouldn't be together. Maybe this was all a mistake." "That's not fair," Marcus protested. "I do trust you, but this isn't about trust. It's about understanding something that doesn't make sense." "Get out," Sarah said coldly, wrapping her arms around herself. "Get out of my house. Sarah, please. Get out." Marcus left, and Sarah collapsed on her couch, sobbing harder than she had since the divorce 3 years ago. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? How had she let herself trust him again, only to have him doubt her? The next 2 weeks were torture. Marcus called and texted constantly, leaving voicemails that Sarah deleted without listening to. He sent flowers that Sarah gave to her neighbor. He showed up at her door twice, and she refused to answer. She couldn't deal with his doubt, his need for proof. She'd been through too much, fought too hard, to have someone question her truth. But the children noticed Marcus's absence immediately and constantly. "Where's Marcus?" Emma asked every single day. "Why doesn't he come over anymore?" "He's busy, sweetie," Sarah would say, her heart breaking a little more each time. "But he promised to teach me to swim," Noah whined. "He promised, and he never breaks promises." "I miss him," Lily said simply. And those three words hurt more than anything. And Sarah realized that in trying to protect herself, she was hurting her children. They'd grown attached to Marcus, had started seeing him as a father figure, as someone permanent in their lives. His absence was creating a hole that they didn't understand. She also realized something else, something that kept her up at night staring at the ceiling, something that made her stomach twist with a horrible possibility. What if Marcus was right? Not about her lying, but about the possibility of a connection they didn't understand. The resemblance was too strong to be pure coincidence, and she'd never questioned it too deeply because she'd been so focused on bringing her babies home, on navigating the adoption system, on becoming their mother. The adoption agency in Guatemala had given her basic information. The mother was 15, couldn't care for the babies. The father was unknown. The children had been left at the hospital with no family contact information. But what if there was more to the story? What if there was something she'd never thought to ask? Sarah made a decision. She called Marcus. "Let's do the test," she said without preamble when he answered on the first ring. "Not because I think you're right, not because I believe there's any chance these are biologically yours, but because I'm starting to wonder too. Because the resemblance is too strong. Because I need to know the truth as much as you do now." "Sarah," Marcus breathed, relief evident in his voice. "Thank you. Thank you for understanding." "I'm not doing this for you," Sarah said firmly. "I'm doing this for me, for my children. Because if there's something about their origins that I don't know, I need to know it." They met at a DNA testing center in Manhattan a week later, a sterile medical office that smelled like antiseptic. The process was simple, painless swabs for Marcus and all 6 children who thought it was a game. Results would take 2 weeks, though they could rush it for an extra fee. Marcus insisted on rush processing, 3 days instead of 2 weeks. Those 3 days were the longest of Sarah's life. She and Marcus maintained a cautious distance, both too afraid to hope or guess what the results might reveal. They didn't talk about what it would mean either way. They just waited. When the envelope arrived via courier on day 3, they opened it together in Sarah's living room while the children played in the backyard, oblivious to the moment that might change everything. Sarah's hands shook as she pulled out the papers. Legal language and technical terms swam before her eyes. She read the first line, and her world stopped completely. Probability of paternity, 99.9% for all 6 subjects. The paper fell from her hands. Marcus caught it, reading it himself, his face going pale and then flushing red. "Oh my God," Marcus breathed. "Oh my God, Sarah." They sat in stunned silence, the implications washing over them in waves. Shock. Confusion. Impossibility. "How is this possible?" Sarah whispered, her mind refusing to accept what the paper said. "How is this possible? I adopted them. From Guatemala. I have all the paperwork, birth certificates, adoption decrees, medical records." Marcus was already on his phone, typing frantically with shaking fingers. "When is their birthday? Their exact birthday?" "February 14th, Sarah said, her voice sounding far away. "Valentine's Day. They were born on Valentine's Day." Marcus did the math, counting backwards on his fingers, his eyes getting wider. "That's 9 months from May. Sarah, do you remember our last fertility treatment? The final IVF cycle in May before we gave up? Before we stopped trying?" Sarah's mind raced back 3.5 years. The endless doctor appointments that all blurred together. The hormone shots that made her emotional and bloated. The invasive procedures that made her feel like a science experiment. The final attempt that had cost $15,000 they couldn't really afford. "They told us it didn't work," she said slowly, memory returning in fragments. "Dr. Chen called 3 weeks later, said the pregnancy test was negative, that we should discuss other options, that it was time to consider adoption or surrogacy or accepting childlessness." "What if it was wrong?" Marcus said, his voice rising with excitement and confusion and disbelief. What if you were pregnant, but it was too early to detect? What if the embryo implanted late? What if... He stopped, a horrible realization crossing his face. His eyes went dark. The divorce papers, he said quietly, the words heavy. They were filed in June, finalized in August. Sarah, if you'd been pregnant in May, you would have been showing by August. You would have been almost 6 months pregnant. But I wasn't, Sarah said desperately, trying to make sense of it. I never had morning sickness, never gained weight, never felt movement, never had any symptoms. Marcus, I took pregnancy tests every single month after we split up. They were always negative, always. They stared at each other, both trying to piece together an impossible puzzle that didn't fit any logical pattern. The adoption papers, Marcus said suddenly, standing up with new purpose. Do you have them? All of them? Everything from Guatemala? Sarah retrieved the thick file from her home office, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Together they spread the documents across the kitchen table. Birth certificates in Spanish, hospital records from Guatemala, adoption decree with official seals, immigration paperwork. And then Sarah saw it, a detail she'd never paid attention to before, a detail that had meant nothing to her at the time. The hospital name, she said slowly, her finger tracing the words. Hospital San Rafael in Guatemala City. Marcus pulled out his phone again, Googling frantically. His face went completely pale, all color draining away. Sarah, he said carefully, his voice shaking. Hospital San Rafael has a program, had a program, for American women seeking surrogacy. It was one of the few countries where commercial surrogacy was still legal until 2017. The room spun. Sarah grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. No, she whispered. That's not possible. That can't be possible. I would have known. I would have remembered. Someone would have told me. But even as she said it, memories started surfacing. Fragments she'd pushed away. The final fertility treatment in May. Dr. Chen's cryptic comment about exploring all options and new programs. The paperwork she'd signed without fully reading. Too defeated to care. Just wanting to be done with the whole nightmare. The legal documents that had felt excessive at the time. Marcus, she said, her voice shaking violently, what if they used our embryos? What if the fertility clinic used our genetic material in a surrogacy program without properly explaining it? What if I signed something I didn't understand? It sounded completely insane, like a medical thriller or a conspiracy theory, but it was the only explanation that made sense with the DNA results in front of them. Marcus was already calling Dr. Chen's office, but it was Saturday evening. The clinic was closed. He left an urgent voicemail demanding an explanation, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep at all. She kept replaying everything. The adoption process that had seemed surprisingly easier than expected once the initial bureaucracy was handled. The agency's eagerness to place 6 babies with her, specifically. The social worker's comment about fate bringing her to the right place at the right time. The uncanny resemblance that everyone noticed but she explained away. The next morning, they went to the fertility clinic together without calling first. Dr. Chen wasn't there, but the on-call physician was, a young woman who looked terrified when Marcus demanded to see their medical files. I can't discuss past cases without proper authorization, she said nervously, her hand on the phone like she might call security. We're not asking about someone else's case, Marcus said, his voice dangerously calm. We're asking about ours. Did your clinic use our genetic material in a surrogacy program? We have a DNA test showing 6 children in Guatemala are biologically ours. The young doctor's face gave her away before she spoke. Guilt and fear and recognition. You need to speak with Dr. Chen, she said. I'll have her call you immediately. This is above my clearance level. Dr. Chen called an hour later, asking them to come in Monday morning. The weekend was endless. 48 hours of speculation and fear and anger. Monday morning, they sat in Dr. Chen's office. She looked older than Sarah remembered, more tired, guilty. There was a program, Dr. Chen admitted quietly, her hands folded on her desk. International surrogacy. We partnered with hospitals in Guatemala and Mexico. It was completely legal at the time, but it required full patient consent. We never consented to surrogacy, Sarah said, her voice rising. We never even discussed it seriously. Actually, Dr. Chen said, her voice careful and measured, you did, Mrs. Walsh. Or rather, you were Mrs. Walsh at the time. In May of that year, you signed a consent form for surplus embryo donation and alternative reproduction options. I never signed anything like that, Sarah protested desperately. I would remember. Dr. Chen turned her computer screen toward them. There was Sarah's signature, clear as day, on a document titled Consent for Embryo Transfer to Surrogate Carrier. Sarah's mind went back to that final appointment 4 years ago. She'd been so defeated, so broken, so desperate for it all to be over. She'd signed a stack of papers without really reading them, too emotionally exhausted to process legal language, just wanting to be done with the whole nightmare. Dr. Chen had explained something about donating their remaining embryos to help other couples, about giving hope to someone else since their own hope was gone. Sarah had barely listened, just signed where the sticky notes indicated, tears streaming down her face the entire time. But even if I consented to embryo donation, Sarah said slowly, her voice trembling, how did they end up as my children? How did I adopt my own biological children without knowing? Dr. Chen shifted uncomfortably in her chair, avoiding eye contact. That's where things got complicated. The surrogate we matched with your embryos was young, very young. We were told she was 18, but we later discovered she was only 15, a runaway from a rural village. The pregnancy was extremely high risk with sextuplets. She went into premature labor at 32 weeks. And, Marcus demanded, leaning forward aggressively. She disappeared, Dr. Chen said quietly. The moment the babies were stable enough, she left the hospital. No forwarding address, no contact information. The program panicked. 6 premature American babies with no legal parents in Guatemala. The surrogate had signed away her parental rights, but the intended parents, you two, were already divorced by then. The clinic tried to contact you both, but your phone numbers had changed. The address on file was the apartment you'd sold. Sarah felt sick, actually physically sick. So what did they do? They made a choice, Dr. Chen said, and there was shame in her voice. A choice that was legally questionable at best. They classified the babies as abandoned, filed false documentation claiming the surrogate was the biological mother who couldn't care for them, put them into the Guatemalan adoption system. The clinic director thought it was better than the babies ending up in permanent foster care or worse. And then I showed up, Sarah whispered, understanding dawning, looking to adopt. The agency in Guatemala City had connections to our program, Dr. Chen continued. When you expressed interest in adopting the sextuplets, someone recognized your name from the original embryo donation paperwork. They realized what had happened, that you were trying to adopt your own biological children without knowing it. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. And nobody thought to tell her? Nobody thought that maybe Sarah deserved to know she was adopting her own children? They should have, Dr. Chen agreed. It was wrong, it was unethical. But by that point, the false documentation was already filed. The babies were legally classified as abandoned Guatemalan children. Telling the truth would have exposed the entire surrogacy program, gotten multiple people arrested, and potentially prevented the adoption from going through at all. They made a calculation that it was better for you to adopt your own children, believing they were someone else's, than risk you never getting them at all. Sarah couldn't breathe. The walls of the office were closing in. Her entire life for the past 3 years had been based on a lie. A well-intentioned lie, maybe, but still a lie. Who else knows? She asked quietly. Who else knew the truth? The clinic director, who's now deceased, Dr. Chen said. Myself. 2 social workers in Guatemala who handled your case, and now you. This is fraud, Marcus said angrily, pacing the small office. This is medical malpractice. This is probably a dozen different crimes. People should be in prison for this. You're right, Dr. Chen said calmly. And if you want to pursue legal action, I'll cooperate fully. I'll testify. I'll provide all documentation. But Marcus, Sarah, before you make that decision, think about what it means. Going public with this means your children's entire origin story becomes public. It means reporters. It means their story being splashed across newspapers. It means they grow up knowing they were the center of an international scandal. Sarah's head was spinning. She stood up on shaky legs. I need air. I need to get out of here. She stumbled out of the office, Marcus right behind her. They made it to the parking lot before Sarah doubled over, dry heaving. Marcus held her hair back, rubbing her back the way he used to when they were married. This can't be real, Sarah gasped. This has to be a nightmare. It's real, Marcus said, and she could hear the fury and shock in his voice. Sarah, those are our children. Actually, biologically, our children. Children we made together. Children who should have been ours from the beginning. Sarah straightened up, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. But they are mine. I fought for them. I brought them home. I've been their mother for 3 years. Biology doesn't change that. I know, Marcus said gently. Nobody's saying it does. But Sarah, it means I'm their father. Their actual biological father. Not just some guy dating their mom. I have legal rights. We have to figure out what this means. They sat in Marcus's car in the parking lot for over an hour, trying to process the impossible truth. The city moved around them, people going about their normal days while their entire world had been turned upside down. We need a lawyer, Marcus said finally. A really good lawyer. Maybe several lawyers. I need to tell my children, Sarah said, her voice hollow. They deserve to know the truth. Do they? Marcus asked carefully. Sarah, they're 5 years old. Do they need to know about surrogacy and embryos and international fraud? Can't we just tell them I'm their biological father and leave it at that for now? Sarah considered this. He was right. The full story was too complex, too adult. But they deserved to know that Marcus wasn't just mommy's boyfriend. He was their father. That night after dinner and baths, Sarah and Marcus sat all 6 children down in the living room. 6 curious faces looked up at them, sensing something important was happening. We have something to tell you, Sarah began, her voice shaking. Something wonderful and surprising. Marcus is not just mommy's friend. He's your biological father. That means he helped make you before you were born. 6 faces scrunched up in confusion. Like how butterflies come from caterpillars? Emma asked, always trying to understand things scientifically. Sort of, Marcus said, smiling despite the gravity of the moment. It means you're part of me and part of your mommy. You have my eyes and her smile. You came from both of us. So you're our daddy? Noah asked, his voice small and hopeful. Marcus looked at Sarah, asking permission with his eyes. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, Marcus said, his own voice breaking. I'm your daddy, if you want me to be. 6 children launched themselves at Marcus simultaneously, a pile of hugs and kisses and shouts of, Daddy! 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 Sarah watched through her tears as Marcus held all 6 of them, his face buried in their hair, his shoulders shaking with sobs. Does this mean you're going to live with us? Lily asked, always the practical one. Marcus looked at Sarah again. This was the question that mattered, the question that changed everything. Would you like that? Sarah asked her children. Would you like Marcus to live with us? To be part of our family officially? Yes! 6 voices shouted in unison, no hesitation. Then we'll figure it out, Sarah said, meeting Marcus's eyes. We'll figure out how to be a family. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyer meetings and legal discussions. The clinic settled immediately, offering a substantial sum for the children's future. $8 million split into 6 trust funds. The adoption was deemed valid since Sarah had legally adopted her own biological children, even if unknowingly. Marcus's parental rights were established through the DNA test, and his name was added to their birth certificates. But the bigger question remained. What happened next with their relationship? Marcus's divorce from Jennifer was finalized in October. He moved out of his Manhattan apartment and into a rental in Park Slope, 3 blocks from Sarah's house. Close enough to be present, far enough to give Sarah space to process everything. They went to couples therapy, a kind woman named Dr. Rodriguez who specialized in complex family dynamics. She helped them navigate the impossible situation they found themselves in. You have to separate the romantic relationship from the co-parenting relationship, Dr. Rodriguez said during one session. Right now, everything is tangled together. You need to figure out if you want to be together because you love each other or because you share children. It was a fair question. In the chaos of the DNA revelation, They'd stopped examining their actual feelings for each other. Sarah thought about it constantly. Did she love Marcus, or was she just caught up in the fairy tale of it all? The idea that they'd created these 6 perfect children together, that fate had conspired to bring them back together. The answer came unexpectedly on a random Tuesday in November. Sarah was sick, actually sick with the flu, fever and chills and body aches. She could barely get out of bed. The children needed to get to school, but she couldn't drive. She texted Marcus at 6 in the morning, apologizing for bothering him but desperate. He'd shown up 30 minutes later with medicine, soup, and orange juice. He'd gotten all 6 children dressed, fed, into school on time. He'd come back at lunch to check on Sarah, bringing more soup and forcing her to drink water. He'd picked the children up from school, helped with homework, made dinner, done bath time and bedtime routine, all without complaint. All while Sarah slept. When she woke up at 9 that night, groggy and disoriented, she found Marcus asleep in the chair next to her bed, watching over her, making sure she was okay. And in that moment, Sarah knew she loved him, not because of the children, not because of fate or biology or second chances, but because of who he'd become, because he showed up, because he was patient and kind and present, because he'd learned from his mistakes and grown into a better man. Marcus, she whispered, touching his hand. He woke immediately, alert. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I love you, she said simply. I'm in love with you, not because you're the father of my children, but because you're you. Marcus's face transformed, hope and joy and relief washing over his features. I love you too. I never stopped loving you. Even when I tried, even when I was married to someone else, it was always you, Sarah. He kissed her then, gentle and careful because she was sick, but full of promise, full of future. Marry me, Marcus said against her lips. For real this time. Not because we should, not because of the kids, but because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning. Because you're the love of my life. Yes, Sarah said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you. Again. They got married on Valentine's Day, the children's 6th birthday. A small ceremony in Sarah's backyard with close friends and family. 6 children served as flower girls and ring bearers, stealing the show in their matching outfits. Marcus moved into Sarah's brownstone officially. It was cramped and chaotic and loud and absolutely perfect. But the story wasn't quite over yet. In March, Sarah started feeling sick again, nauseous in the mornings, exhausted all the time. At first she thought it was just stress, or maybe she'd caught another flu bug from the kids. But then she was late, 2 weeks late. She took a pregnancy test on a random Thursday morning, not expecting anything. The doctors had been clear. Her fertility issues hadn't magically resolved. The endometriosis was still there, but the test was positive. Sarah took 5 more tests, all positive. She made an appointment with a new fertility specialist, Dr. Patel, who'd taken over Dr. Chen's practice. The ultrasound confirmed it. 8 weeks pregnant. Single baby this time, not sextuplets. Perfectly healthy. But how? Sarah asked, staring at the tiny blob on the screen that was apparently her baby. The doctors said it was impossible. Sometimes, Dr. Patel said with a smile, pregnancy with one child can reset the reproductive system. The hormones, the physical changes. Your body went through pregnancy via surrogate even if you didn't experience it directly. The embryo implantation from the IVF that created your sextuplets might have changed something. Or maybe it's just a miracle. Medicine doesn't have all the answers. Sarah drove home in a daze. She'd spent so many years being told she couldn't have children naturally, and now she was pregnant. Actually pregnant. Growing a baby inside her own body this time. She told Marcus that night after the children were in bed. She'd planned a big reveal, something cute and creative. But the moment he walked in the door from work, she blurted it out. I'm pregnant. Marcus froze, his briefcase dropping to the floor. What? I'm pregnant, 8 weeks. There's a heartbeat and everything. I saw it on the ultrasound. Marcus's face went through a dozen emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, disbelief, confusion, and finally pure joy. He picked Sarah up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying. "We're having a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "An actual baby that you're carrying." "I know," Sarah said. "I can't believe it either." After everything, after being told it was impossible, they told the children the next morning at breakfast. Six faces looked confused. "But you can't have babies, Mommy," Emma said, ever the logical one. "You told us you adopted us because your tummy didn't work for growing babies." "I thought it didn't," Sarah said. "But sometimes miracles happen. Sometimes our bodies surprise us. Sometimes impossible things become possible." "So we're going to have a brother or sister?" Noah asked, his eyes wide. "Yes," Marcus said, grinning. "In about 7 months." Six children erupted in excitement, already arguing about names and whether they wanted a brother or sister, and who would get to hold the baby first. Sarah watched the chaos with tears in her eyes. 5 years ago, she'd been a broken woman told she'd never be a mother. Now she had 6 children and another on the way. She had a husband who loved her. She had a full, chaotic, beautiful life. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked, pulling her close. "That sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead to the best ones?" Sarah said. "That sometimes we have to lose everything to find what really matters. That sometimes endings are actually beginnings." Marcus kissed her forehead. "I love you. I love our crazy life. I love that we're going to add even more chaos to this house." "Me too," Sarah said, laughing, "though I might be certifiably insane." "Probably," Marcus agreed, "but I wouldn't have it any other way." The baby was born in October, a healthy girl they named Grace, because Grace was what had brought them back together. Grace was what had given them a second chance. Grace was what had turned their tragedy into triumph. Grace Walsh came home to a house full of siblings who fought over who got to hold her first, to parents who'd learned that love was stronger than biology, that forgiveness was more powerful than resentment, that second chances were real. And sometimes Sarah would look at her 7 children, at her husband, at the life she'd built from the ashes of her broken dreams, and she'd understand something profound. The story she'd thought was an ending had actually been the beginning. The moment Marcus walked away had set everything in motion. The pain had been necessary. The heartbreak had been the path. Because if he'd never left, she'd never have gone to Guatemala. If she'd never gone to Guatemala, she'd never have found their 6 children lost in a flawed system. If she'd never fought to bring them home, she'd never have discovered her own strength. If she'd never discovered her own strength, she'd never have been ready to forgive him. If she'd never forgiven him, they'd never have found their way back to each other. Every piece had been necessary. Every moment of pain had led to this moment of joy. And that, Sarah realized, was the real miracle. Not the biological impossibility of her pregnancy. Not the strange twist of fate that let her adopt her own children, but the journey itself, the transformation, the way broken things could be made whole again if you were brave enough to try. On Grace's first birthday, surrounded by 7 children and enough chaos to drive any sane person mad, Marcus pulled Sarah aside. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "The pain we went through? The years we lost?" Sarah looked at their children, at the beautiful mess of their life, and shook her head. "Not for a second," she said, "because all of it, every painful moment, led us here. And here is exactly where we're supposed to be." Marcus kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, while their 7 children made exaggerated gagging sounds in the background. And Sarah knew, with absolute certainty, that she was home. Finally, completely, perfectly home.